show you a couple of water saving techniques. It's really not water saving, it's low maintenance, having healthy plants but not wasteful, that kind of stuff. So we'll go into all of that. And then we'll go into a few plants that I kind of like myself that are just low water, low care, low. And so those are the three things I want to do. Okay, so actually four. How to set the clock, how often should you run it, water saving techniques, using your water more efficiently, and then plants that use water more efficiently. Makes sense? So for those four things before we're all done, in 60 seconds, 60 minutes or less. There we go. First and foremost, pull out we got to know how often to water. Now, you all being in a garden class, at a garden center, in spring, it says something about you automatically. I'm already judging you. So you're generous, you're Americans, you're gardeners. Some of you are you like nurturing things, and some of you are grossly overwatering your plants. You're pampering them to death, literally. So you're dealing with rock lawns. You've got plants that are generally like heat and sun. These plants usually don't like a lot of water. Or they do like a lot, but then they like to dry out. So if you're coming in from the Northwest, this is a really hard concept for you Northwest folks. It rains every day in Seattle. It's got to water every day in my yard. Get past that. I just want to smack you if you do that. Don't do that. Plants don't like to be watered every day. They don't like to be drowned. If they sit in our heavy clay soils and their roots are just sitting there, soggy wet all the time, they'll root rot. So we see far more plants come back to us from root rot than we do from being too dry. And here's the indication of root rot. So you put it in the ground, you fill up all those air pockets in the soil with water molecules, and all of a sudden that plant is sitting basically in your bathtub. You might as well, there's no soil, it's just water every place. The plant slowly starts to rot, those nice white root hairs start to stain, they'll get streaking, they'll turn brown, there'll actually be a slight odor many times when the person brings it back into the store going, what's wrong with my plant? You killed it, not me, you killed it. I did it just the way you wanted me to. I've heard this so many times. It's literally rotting underneath in the soil, and this odor will come out. The plant will the symptoms on top will be the leaves will start to dry out at the tips because we've rotted off some of the roots. So there's not enough root mass to now support the top growth. So you start to see this dry look. So the tendency is water more. The inside of the foliage will tend to start to yellow. You see some yellowing leaves going, oh, it needs more water. And so you just want to water more. It looks exactly like underwatering. The symptoms are exactly the same. In that, when you underwater, the end of the roots start to dry up. So there's not enough root mass to support the top growth, so you get those symptoms. When you're overwatering too much, the ends of the roots tend to rot, so there's not enough root mass to support the top, so the symptoms are tricky. It's really tricky, but 80% of all garden problems are what we're talking about today. Water, 80% of it. So we're going to get you where you are in the zone where you can start making mistakes and recover from it before you get the death pattern happening. And you can actually bring these plants back and they'll reroot. You just got to catch it and not be wanting to water more often. So on the back of the business card, you want to look at this. So if you're anyone that's helping people with customers, we give you a card. And mainly because the number one question we get at the garden center is how often should I water? I mean, every day I answer it 10 times a day. And so what you'll notice is this pattern, it's hard to actually fit this much information in the back of a card, but it's made to actually tape inside your garden journal, your irrigation box. It's made to be a reference right there, so it's easy to know. When do I turn this on and off? So you notice we've got summer and winter. We are watering year round. You'll notice that summer is April through October, so it's time to turn the irrigation systems on. We're done, we're past the freezing. Your system's not going to freeze, the ground is not going to freeze. We might see another snow, it might get another frost, but that's not going to freeze your irrigation systems. It's time to turn them on. Through October, the growing season here is April through October. Winter is November through March, the rest of the time. So you'll notice there's a water pattern for each. Established plants, things that have been in the ground for 2 seasons. That is, we put this beautiful euphorbia in the ground. It doesn't have a very large root mass yet. It's all the roots are right here, so it needs water more frequently because the roots haven't pushed out. As soon as you get 2 growing seasons, the roots all of a sudden are now 3, 4, 5 times the size. And so now it's got enough resources to start pulling in moisture and food from all over the landscape. Your bigger trees, they now have roots across the yard, in the flower bed, in the lawn, they're everywhere. So they're starting to run underneath the ground and find food and water. So, but it takes a couple seasons to get there. When you first put the plant in, you need to put those drip emitters right at the base. You need to put it right where this root zone is. After the second growing season, we need to move it out where the roots, where the healthier root hairs are. That's out here now. Probably the drip line, this plant's bushed out some too. So we just kind of move the emitters or the watering frequency out where those roots are. The top mirrors the roots underneath. It's kind of a direct mirror, not direct, but close. It's a good way to think of it, okay? So, that first year, let's see, established plants, they've got roots all over the place. They're, generally speaking, once a week is that's plenty for a big tree or shrub, especially if it's been in there for a while, it's kind of adapted to our dryness, it's used to it. So once a week watering for trees and shrubs. Well, what about my roses, Ken? It's a shrub. Roses have roots that go to China. Well, what about my big pine trees? It's the same. A pine tree is the same as a maple, is the same as an aspen, is the same. All trees go down about 2 feet, 3 if they're really aggressive. Let's call it a cottonwood or a sycamore, maybe 3 feet. Rarely do I see that. It's almost always 18 to 24 inches. The roots turn and they start going sideways. I call it the hockey stick effect. It's got a taproot that goes down about 18, 24 inches, turns and starts running out into the yard. Because there's nothing down there for the plants to go after. There's just more caliche, rocks, clay. There's no water. There's no organics. There's no food. There's nothing down there. Even big natives, they actually will run hundreds of feet just below the surface because they're trying to pick up that monsoon rain. They're trying to pick up the few moisture events that we have and absorb it as fast as they can. And that's how they do it. Okay? If you know that's how plants are going to grow, let's encourage them to pick up water, treat them so that they can pick up that food and that water better in the yard. Okay? Trees and shrubs, all trees and shrubs the same. Just treat them the same. New plants. You all are gardeners, and I'm hoping you're going to plant some new plants. I need you to. I got a big mortgage here. Got 2 kids in college. I need you to buy some plants. But if you've got some new plants, and gardeners, I'm always putting some new plants in. There, because the roots are still so confined, they're going to need more frequent watering because their root mass they don't have the resources to pick up and store as much water. So they're a little more frequency. So there it's twice a week. Pick a Monday and a Thursday, or just every 4 or 5 days, water them, okay? If you don't want to change your irrigation system, what you could do is set the master valve up for all the landscape, and then you could hand water that new plant once, to supplement once per week, just to top it over. So if you've got a mainly established landscape, but you got a few new things you want in there, you can go ahead and just hand water. Put a water basin or something, water with a hose. Or you can adjust and kind of make the adjustments with the clock. If it's all brand new landscape, or most of it's new, just set it for twice a week. Okay? The secret is water deep, then let the plants breathe. They have to breathe. They can't breathe, they're going to root rot on us. That's a very common problem. Okay? Lawns, now we're getting kind of dicey. It depends on the kind of grass you have. It depends on the kind of bubblers, heads you've got. There's so many variables with lawns, but I had to put it on there because when I made this, lawns used to be popular. They still are, but they're just postage stamp kind of stuff. It's like 500 square feet for Fifi to go on. That's about what it is anymore. The big spreading lawns, 2,000-3,000 square foot, the whole backyard and front yard, water's gotten more expensive, so it's harder to do that. There's a few, but about twice a week, right now especially, I think you shouldn't need any more than twice a week. Really, you could probably go once a week yet. It's been cool. But as soon as we reach 80 degrees, you'll probably find the grass needs a little bit more moisture. Herbs, veggies, flowers, the shallow rooted things with only root mass about this big, they're going to need more frequent. So shorter time periods, but more frequent. Probably about the same amount of water, because a tree or a shrub, to push that water down 2-3 feet, it takes a while for a drip emitter to push water that far into the soil. Whereas a little tiny flower, let's say it's whatever, tomatoes or whatever it is, it doesn't take long to saturate that much moisture, that much soil. Okay, we making sense? We tracking so forth? Does that make sense? In the winter, you'll watch this. Plants are starting to come out of their winter slumber now. You'll see some plants died. There's only one reason that happened. They were dry when the winter, you had a cold snap come through, and that plant was dry when that cold hit in the winter storm. January. It was cold. In the first part of February, it was cold. And so that damage happened 2 months ago in midwinter. It just never woke up. And so the other one would be, let's say your big evergreens, euonymus, reticoptinias, your big cotoneasters. Those guys, you'll find some in the neighborhood, the tops of the plants died off. We call it winter burn or winter kill. And so that's a plant, that's where that plant was dry. It didn't have enough moisture in the whole structure of the plant. And so it didn't have enough moisture to push the antifreeze, which is naturally occurring within the structure of that plant. And so all of a sudden it sacrificed the top of the plant to keep the core, the heart of the plant alive. So the only way out of that is to cut off the dead part, fertilize, turn your irrigation back on, it'll start activating. The mistake that those folks actually turned their irrigation off in November, and then they didn't water again until April. And so they had some cold that hit them, and you'll see some of that damage show up. So no elbowing each other yet. Very, very common, very common. So I think you need to adjust that system on just once a month at least. I tell folks twice a month. You'll notice established plants, basically everything's twice a month at that point in the winter. Just keep it moist. You don't need to water heavy. Just need to moisten up the plants so the plants can absorb some moisture and keep the antifreeze basically flowing throughout the structure of that plant. That's the goal. Okay. So twice a month, if you have a major wet event, you could probably cut one of those out, especially for established plants. Now, this last storm we just had, was that a major event? Virtually zero moisture hit the ground. I mean, yes, but I was in the hot tub. What was that? A couple nights ago, in the evening, it was raining. But it didn't saturate the ground at all. It just kind of had a little bit of dew, increased the frost maybe. That was not a major event. In winter, really it's 1 inch of rain is a major event. That's monsoonal stuff. Or 7 inches of snow in winter. 7 inches of snow equals 1 inch of rain, approximately. That's close, but that correlates pretty well. So it takes a lot of snow to actually moisten your plants through midwinter. So it tricks, and we're basically, what happened to El Nino? El Nino, what was it?
Colorado.
It kind of just disappeared. What was that? I'm so disappointed actually. Okay, so you notice at the very bottom, in the really fine print, you'll need a magnifying glass, it says, drip irrigation should run 2 to 3 hours. Drip irrigation. You got ahead. Let's see, did I bring one of those? Let's see if I've got one of my own. So I brought my irrigation box. This is my box that I just have. I think you should have, this has been around a lot of years. You should have a parts box. If you have a drip system, you should just have some spare parts. So a drip emitter, this orifice that this water is coming out of, it basically goes drip, 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 drip. That's about the pace, 1 gallon per hour. This is pressure compensating, self-cleaning, it's a good head. But it's got to run for an hour to get 1 gallon of water out on that plant. An hour for 1 gallon. And you've got a 15-gallon tree you just put out there. A 15-gallon tree needs about 15 gallons of water a week. 15 gallons. A 10-gallon plant needs about 10 gallons of water a week. A 5-gallon plant, guess how much it needs? Yeah, about 5 gallons. 1 gallon, about 1 gallon, okay? So you can kind of do that math real quick. If you have a new thing, you can kind of judge how much you need. So you adjust the number of heads and the amount of time you're giving that plant based on how much you think the plant would need. Okay, so that's you can do that math real quick in your own head and calculate, oh, I'm going to need 3 emitters for this great big tree. I'll need to run it for 3 hours. And I'll probably need to up it from 1 gallon per hour head. I'll probably need 2 gallon hour heads. So you can kind of do that math real quick, or we can help you with that too. Okay? It's got to run a long time. This is hard for my Californian folks. You guys are used to flood irrigating everything. So you have these huge pop-up sprinklers that just flood the entire bed, and in 30 minutes you got standing water flowing down the street. That's not what we're dealing with. This is micro irrigation. Very, very, very efficient. And so it needs to run a long time to get that water filled in. So this every day for 15 minutes, I hear this almost, I had a nickel for every time I heard, yeah, but I water it 15 minutes every day. It's watered every day. But it's a 1 gallon per hour emitter head. You ran it for 15 minutes. So you gave it a quart of water every day. This plant needs 15 gallons a week. How much water did you actually give that plant? It was like spitting on it. I mean, it's like nothing. It's like didn't even make a difference. And so you'll see that play out. If the contractor set that up years ago, it's been watering like that, you'll see literally in the monsoon patterns, trees will fall out of the ground. They've got roots about this far down in the ground, really, really shallow, and they're really dependent. During a drought cycle, they get obliterated because their roots only go this far. We want to encourage roots to go very deep into the soil, 2-3 feet, and that's going to take you running that drip irrigation a long time, and then let it dry out. Don't go with the frequency. Repeat in about a week. That'll make a big difference. That'll make a stronger tree, larger, deeper root structure, healthier. To be able to pick up more food, more water. So we're not going to water these things every day, especially trees and shrubs. Maybe a vegetable in the peak of summer, maybe you might do that. But even then, I'm going to show you some techniques that can get you past that. Make for better fruits, okay? You track with me so I don't see glazed eyes too much. Try to help you get on track. Okay, so that's the clock. And please, I'm trying to get past Depot and Lowe's. Can I see that on film? They're my nemesis. But you could help me by putting my logo in every irrigation box in my county. Okay? That's the goal. Part of it. That's why the logo's on the back. But it really is meant to be a help. Because you're going, now when do I turn this thing on? It's always in April, always. When do I turn it off? It's always the end of October, November, somewhere in there. The first frost is always about Halloween. That's about when you kind of turn it off. There's some fudge factor. So maybe you're on a vacation cruise through the Panama, you don't get back until Thanksgiving. That's fine. Just go ahead and now go to the winter cycle at that point. Just don't let it get into the hard freeze of midwinter and you still are watering, once a week. That's too much. You'll get root rot, problems will happen. Also, when do you water? What time of the day? You want to be in the morning. You want your plants hydrated before the heat of the day. So this is a problem for my Phoenix folks. I mean, you all are coming up. You've been living for the last 10, 15 years, right next to the sun. It's like 100 degrees out at midnight. Welcome to God's country. It's nice up here. We don't get that hot, ever. Even middle of the day, ever get that hot. And so this myth of water in the evening, the plants will absorb more water in the evening. Don't do that to your plants. I'm going to make a killing off of you if you do that. You're going to have so much mildew and black spot and leaf spot. You're going to come in for all these problems that if that plant stays wet to the middle of the night, you're going to have fungal issues. It's like athlete's foot of the foliage is what's going to happen. Plants will curl, the leaves will curl, they'll spot, they'll get shot holes, they'll get holes from things will turn color. They'll get brown on the tips. It's ugly. In Phoenix, you can do that. If you live 10 miles from the sun, you can water at the night because it still dries out. Up here, we cool off so much in the evening. It goes down to 60 degrees, even in the middle of the summer, 67 degrees. It's nice. So those plants don't dry out. So they stay moist, and then things start to grow that shouldn't grow. on your plants. It's better to water our plants in the mountains. It's different here than it is in the deserts. It's better to water very early morning. So I'll have my systems running 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. Really, you want to have things hydrated before 8 o'clock in the morning. Because after 8, by 9, it's hot. I mean, if it's in direct sun by the driveway, it's starting to get warm. You want those plants to be hydrated before that. If you're a vegetable gardener or herb gardener, you want to water early morning so those fruits will plump up, add the moisture, adds flavor, If you wait until in the evening, the fruits shrink and they start to crack, you start to have issues. Better to water in the morning, hydrate, and then go pick things, harvest things. It'll taste better. You have a better harvest that way. Okay, just trust me on that. It's better to go in the morning than the evening, no matter where you're from or what you've heard. Stop listening to all the gardeners down in Phoenix on a water in the evening. Don't do it that way. It'll be bad. Okay, so I think we got it. Should we go over the clock piece? How to do this? And this is how my brain works. So I tend to be, I like numbers, but I trend towards artists. So I kind of get ADD. I like pictures and colors, but I try to sketch it out first. I try to actually come up with a chart before I go and try to tackle that clock. And so this clock, I actually took the picture last night with my camera phone at 4:53 p.m. last night. I'm getting ready for the class today. This is just right off. This is a very, very common clock that you'll see in your garage. Highly likely you've got something that looks, if not this exact clock, something very close to it. Okay? Anyone have any of these fancy new digital, like Wi-Fi clocks? Nice. Engineer, yeah, doctors, nurses, all you tech guys, accountants, you're all the same. I like the technology. Okay, I've been tempted, but it's too new, and they haven't made it outdoors yet. It's got to be indoors, so far covered. This is an outdoor clock. They'll basically be the same though. So what I do is, this has got 6 valves. You notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 valves. Some of you only have 4 valves. Some of you have 12. Some have 16. Some only have 2. But it'll have a number of valves. Rarely do you only have 1 clock, 1 valve. If that's what you got Jack, you were ripped off. So, because it didn't cost any more to have an extra capacity on the clock. Clock costs basically about the same all along. This is a 6 valve clock, pretty common. If you can't water your landscape with 6 valves, you've got problems. So it's just 6 valves. Then you'll notice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Usually they'll have, maybe sometimes some clocks will double down. They'll go Monday through a Sunday twice. I don't know why they do that, but it's what they do. All I'm looking for in my clock, I never program by day myself. I skip days. I love this skip day feature, and I'll tell you why in just a second. Okay, we're just showing off the clock. And then start times. When do you want them to start? Okay, so most clocks, you can start the same valve. So it's my lawn. I can run that thing 2, 3, 5. Some of you can run 6 times in a day. You can program it to come on every 2 hours at 2, 8, 10 foot. And when you're first starting a lawn, you kind of need that feature. But after it's established, you need to pick a time, and that's it. Just pick a time. Most of you just pick one time, and that's good enough. Skip all the other times. You don't need them. Okay? Brand new gardens. I don't know what semi-auto start ABC. I don't know what that is, and nor do I want to know. It complicates my brain. I just skip that. Some of you have rain sensor stuff. I want it to be 100% or 70% or 60% of that days. Skip that. You're dry, it's crusty. You don't live in the Midwest. We don't need to adjust for humidity. It's just you need to water. So don't get confused. Just try to simplify. Don't use all the features. Don't want to know what all the features are. It's too complicated. Okay? Except for the guy with the high Wi-Fi. Yeah, that's way you're in your car studying how to do. You spent your 2 weeks to figure out how to run your clock. Okay. Here's where it gets funny. This is what we need to explain. The A, B, C. This is why clocks are crazy complicated. The ABC factor. So if you combine that with number of start days and all this other stuff, it gets really crazy. I've got this simplified for you. So this is my clock. This is actually how I've tried to include everything for most folks here. So I put a lawn in here. Lawns need more frequent watering, okay? So those of you that have a lawn, we've got a valve for you. I've got some flowers, because your gardeners, probably half the group are flower. I'm a flower grower. I like some vegetables, but if I had to give up one or the other, I'd dump the vegetables in a heartbeat because they're ugly, and flowers are beautiful. So I'm a flower grower. I've got my trees and shrubs. These are the deep-rooted. That system's going to have to run a long time. Trees and shrubs really need to be on their own valve. I've got container gardens. I do a lot of container gardens, and I don't want to be a slave to the hose. So I've actually put a valve on for my pots, and I just got a black line behind the pots and just runs up and waters them. I'll show you which emitter I use, all that kind of stuff. And then veggie gardens. Veggies many times can be like flowers, or maybe you just have a separate one. You only want to run it only in the growing season and turn it completely off in midwinter, because I don't do winter veggies. So maybe you got that on a separate valve. And then remember, the sixth one is free. There's nothing on it. So that's this clock right here, okay? Then I'll go through and I have another line. How long do I want each one of these things to run? So for me, with my valves and the sprinkler heads I've got, I want to run the lawn 25 minutes. That's probably long enough. You need to do a little measurement to make sure for your heads, but tuna cans laid out in the lawn, run it till you see about an inch of water in the tuna can. You know, that's how long it needs to run. You might need 30 minutes, maybe you only need 15, but for this one, 25 minutes. Doesn't need to run long because they're really heavy users, type of head they're using, pop-up head. Flowers, I'm probably going to use a 1 gallon per hour emitter head for my flowers. I'm going to run those for about 45 minutes. This is rough. I'm getting you real close, okay? I'm getting you where you're going to be right in there. So now I'm giving my flowers a little tiny thing. Let's say it's like this carnation. Great little plant here, great perennial. Comes back every year. It's green like this or blue, whatever color that is, year round, pretty much. But then it starts to bloom like this a crazy long time. And javelina don't eat this. The rabbits seem to leave it alone. It's a great little perennial, the mountains of Arizona. But it doesn't need to be run for 2 hours. It would be way too much. It only has roots going this deep. Then it kind of mounds underneath this plant. So a 1 gallon per hour emitter at the base, at the core of this plant for about no more than an hour. But more than just a few minutes though. You're going to need to get that water all the way through. So I put 45 minutes down for my perennial flowers. Trees and shrubs. Trees and shrubs, I typically use a 2 gallon per hour emitter head for my bigger plants. And here's the reason I use a 2 gallon per hour. The standard that contractors use, 1 gallon per hour. What I find with that is they clog up easier. There's more maintenance with them. My 2 gallon per hours, the orifice is larger. The emitter can frequently sometimes be larger, but the flow is a little bit faster, and so I have less maintenance down the road with my 2 gallon per hour emitter heads. And I'm one, I put it in, and then I've got multiple companies, kids, I'm traveling. I don't have time to be a slave to my drip emitters. I put it on, and I expect it to run until I see probably a casualty. Usually I figure out there's a problem, and the thing is dead. So I find that I have less issues with my 2 gallon per hour emitter heads. Typically those will be green heads. Also, before we go too far down that path, while we're on emitter heads, there's so many types of emitter heads. It's confusing. Here's what you really want. For my friends, here's what I do, and I want you to be as successful. I like a pressure compensated head. You can walk up to any irrigation shop and go, I want a pressure compensating head. Act like you know what you're talking about. Okay? And they'll go, oh, no, we got this. There's 3 different varieties. Here you go. Pressure compensated is, we live in a mountain town, so the way hydraulics work, the pressure at the bottom of the hill with all that water pushing down on it is much faster, and so you get higher flow down below. And at the top of the hill, where the pressure is lighter, you'll get less flow. Pressure compensated adjusts for that, so you get a more accurate flow true to the emitter head at the bottom of the hill as you will at the top of the hill. Long runs, really long runs, you'll have the same flow at the end of the line as you do at the beginning of the line. pressure compensated. You want that, okay? Pressure compensated is good. And then, if you can, get one that self-cleans. Most pressure compensated emitter heads have a action where it goes through, swirls, and pushes out, so it kind of self-cleans itself. That's really important. These are very small orifices. They're very small openings, very small emitter heads. That's how they adjust it. So those are two things that you're looking for, okay? So 2 hours, 2 gallon per hour emitter heads, what I'm using. Containers, 15 minutes. I'll show you which head I'm using there. Vegetables, 30 minutes. Now I know about how long I'm going to run each one. Now we come down to when do I want them to start. What I do is I just add up all these minutes, and here I got 2, 3, call it 4 hours. I got 4 hours of run time. Sometime during the hour, I get about 4 hours. So you go, oh, I want everything to be done by 8 o'clock. I back off 4 hours. That's when I start. That's really simple. That's how I do it. Just number of minutes I want my whole system to run. I'll back up. So here I want my first valve to come on at 4 a.m., which is perfectly fine. It may be dark yet, that's fine. It's okay to be watering when it's dark, just don't have them watered before they're dark and stay wet the entire night. It's okay to have it come on at 4 a.m. So, I usually start with my trees and shrubs because they take so long to water. They're on forever. And then I might have 2 or 3 valves, one in the front yard, one in the backyard. I usually start with my trees. So here I'm going to come on, when do I want my start times to come on? Okay, so trees, I'm going to start at 4 a.m. We just said that. Then I'm going, which valve should I have next? I want to come on after it. Some clocks will run multiple valves at the same time. Not all clocks. The better clocks will prioritize. Going, okay, I'm going to start this one. When this one is done, program, go to the next one. Some of you have those, some of you don't. So here I got to be sort of generic and kind of compensate lowest common denominator. So there I'm going to have 4 a.m. The next one I'm going to water for 2 hours. So the next valve I want to have come on is at 6 a.m., right? So at 6 a.m. I'm going to have my flowers come on. They're going to run for 45 minutes, just shy of an hour. After that, I'm going to have my next valve come on at my container pots are going to run at 6:45. And I ran 45 minutes. So I've always got, I can manually have these things rotate through and take that, does my clock, is it smart enough? Does the computer chip run this, prioritize or not? You can get past all that. The next one I had come on, this runs for 15 minutes. My veggies are going to go on at 7 a.m. And then lastly, I had my lawn come on at 7:30. You track it with me? You got it? Trying to simplify. Once you start making this out, it gets really easy. Now comes the hard part. No, we're going to skip days. How often do I want things to run? Okay? Most of you want to be your dictators of your own little world or your irrigation clock. You want it to come on Mondays and Thursdays. That's it. I'm in control. Skip that. Get past yourself. What you want to do really is how many days do I want to skip in between each cycle? It's much easier to think that way. As soon as you go, I want it to come one day and two, it gets really confusing. You just go skip days, it really simplifies things. And most of you have a skip day function. Even the ones that have the clocks that go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you can actually see each day up there. Even at the very end of that, you'll see skip days or odd even. You'll see some sort of feature like that. Most clocks have a skip day. I use that feature myself. Okay? So here I want my lawn, I want to skip every third day. I'm going to water my lawn. Flowers and lawns are kind of similar. Okay, every 3 days. The trees I want to skip every 7 days. Most things are established. Remember the back of the card? Once a week? Okay, there we go, once a week. Containers, every 2 days, pots dry out fast. Okay, so they just dry out fast. Same with veggies, every 2 days. And the last one, I don't have anything on it. I'm not worried about it. Track with me? Now it gets hard. Here we go. So, the ABC function. Take a look at this picture again. Every clock has an ABC function. This is what messes us all up. This is why you have to be a rocket scientist. Okay? ABC. Some of you only have an A and B, some of you have A, B, C, D, but basically all of us have something like this. What I do is, I try to pick my ABCs. I try to group things that have same frequency. together, and I'll put them on that same A or B or C. So here I kind of broke it down for you. Lawns and flowers, they're really similar in how much water they need. So I have those coming on every third day. I put those on A. Trees are coming on every 7 days. I put that on B. Bear with me, okay? Veggies and container gardens, I put those on C because they're coming on during the heat. During June, I might have those watering every day. So I can quickly adjust that to every day water at 7 o'clock in the morning. If you think through your ABC patterns in this format, it simplifies that clock so anyone can do it. Try to group your valves together so you can now program it. You'll flip it up to A, and you go, program A. You just flip the switch to A, and all of a sudden it's a whole other set, it's a whole other computer chip. It runs just the A programs. And so A, I'm going to have to come on at 6 a.m. And I'm going to water for this amount of time. So it'll come on every third day. Those valves you program will come on at 6 a.m. And then I have all the, on program A, I've got valve 3, 4, and 5, and 6, 0. 0 minutes, 0 time, 0, 0. All I'm worried about A is these two valves. That is it. Everything else is 0. Now I flip that switch down to B. I'm going to program just the B valves. B is just trees. I'm going to have trees come on for 2 hours at 4 a.m. and all the other valves on the B setting will be at 0. No minutes, no time, no nothing. Only thing I'm worried about is valve B, or program B. And B, I just want one valve to come on at 4 a.m. for 2 hours, and that's it. Okay? This really simple, you can wrap your brain around this, it really simplifies setting this clock up. And then I'll flip the switch down to C. This is a whole other set of programming just for C. And I only have containers of veggies on C. This will be 0 minutes, 0 minutes, 0 minutes. Okay, I want this to come on at 6:45 for 15 minutes. Okay, does that make sense? Track with me? I see a lot of nods, a couple glazed over, still processing, still processing, still processing. But just really study this. I think it'll really, this simplified clocks, I can go walk up to any clock, and that's how I do it. I group valves together, they're the same, and I put them on A, and I group the next set, I put them on B, and then I group the next set, put them on C. Okay, if you only have two A and B, I'll just group them as best I can, and I'll have all those valves run the same frequency. We're trying to adjust the frequency of that particular program. So you got program A, B, and C is what it comes down to. Okay, yes?
I have no lawn.
Okay.
My flowers are in containers.
Good.
So just for trees and shrubs, is it okay if I do 1 hour twice a week instead of 2 hours once a week?
Okay, so our question was, this is complicated, Ken. I don't have as many valves. All I have is trees and some flowers. You can program that, just skip all these. So maybe you've got an 8-valve clock, 10, 20 valve clock. You've only got 2 valves in the ground. The clock is way over capacity for what you actually have in your system. So you've just got trees and some flowers. So just program your tree. Instead of every 7 days, you can go every 3 or 4 days. 2 to 3 days is starting to get too much for trees. Here's the real challenge. Some of you were given a curse. Literally. This is like hell on earth with irrigation. You've got 1 valve and you're watering trees and shrubs, the flowers, the vegetables, the containers, and everything on 1 valve. That is impossible. It can't be done. It can't. I can either overwater your trees and make them very happy or unhappy, but your flowers will be happy because they're getting enough water, or I can have the time frame in between water cycles go longer where the trees are happier, but now your flowers are all stressed out because they're just getting too dry. What I try to do with those folks, you only got 1 valve, you really need 2 to 3 or 4 valves, and that contractor, it didn't cost him anything. The trenching, the labor is what cost. He had an open trench. All he had to do was throw 2 or 3 lines in at the same time. It drives me crazy. It didn't cost anything to add an extra valve, but they didn't do it because they're just in and out. They pop in. You'll never see that contractor again. Good luck. So really for those folks, I'll get off my soapbox. Take a breath, Ken. Okay. Those folks, I generally try to make the trees happy. I'll set that one valve up to make the trees come on twice a week, water a long time, and then for the veggies and flowers and the other stuff, herbs that I might need to water more often, I'll encourage that gardener to go and hand water or supplement by hand that extra cycle that maybe the shallow-rooted stuff needs. Okay? Yeah.
Could you do that with a different emitter, like a
It's all about frequency. It's not about emitter head. You're just those trees. Either you need to water a long time to get all that water pushed down. It takes 2-3 hours to get that water pushed down in there. In fact, an emitter head, really the way emitters work in the soil. So here's your surface, and here's your shrub, whatever. You put your emitter head right here. That runs it actually forms kind of a pear shape or a teardrop down below. So right here, it looks almost dry, or a little wet spot will be right there. But the pattern it makes under the ground is like a teardrop. So you need to run that emitter head a long time to get that large pattern of water underneath the root level of that plant to really get that frequency in. You can play with adjustable heads, all kinds of stuff, then you're playing. It'll never be what you need. So every time I put a garden in, I'm going to trench along the fence line, along that hedgerow, through the front by the entrance, and I'm going to throw 2 or 3 lines in the ground at the same time. And then my box, that valve box, usually in the ground, there's a box with a green lid. In there, you can actually count how many valves you've got, because you'll see it. That clock is actually activating that valve and it's running that valve. So I'll put at least 3 valves in myself. Trees and shrubs, flowers and veggies, and my container gardens, because I love containers. They're just so easy, they're pretty, they're just nice. But they need water more frequently because they dry out fast because they're more exposed. So that's this gardener. You might be a little bit different, okay? What I'll do is when that line is in the ground, it's just kind of what I've learned over the years. I'll take a spray can. I have a certain color paint, so red or whatever I have in the garage. I'll spray paint one of those lines all the way down. Only one of them. That way I can go, oh yeah, the black line is trees and shrubs. Red, looks like I have color red, is the flowers. So when I need to add another plant later, I can open up that earth and go, oh yeah, which one is it? There's 3 lines there. Oh yeah, the red one. So I know which one to punch into. If you don't do that, you're just dumbfounded. Every time you want to add a plant, you're going, what? And you always hit the wrong one, always. So you never get it in the right one, so that helps me. I'll actually spray paint the valve that the clock is activating. I'll actually spray paint that red or blue or whatever color you happen to have. And that's kind of will help you down the road. At the same time, I throw in lighting. I love outdoor lighting. Solar lighting is so cheap. It looks sexy for 1 year, then it's just like this dull glow, like cataracts that hit your lighting system. It's like, okay, it's good if you're replacing the solar light, but usually, 2 years down the road, they're all sitting like this, they don't work anymore. If you're gonna have lighting, just invest in really good lighting. Spend the money, have really great lighting. But when you're doing your irrigation line, just run that line down there and you can add lights wherever you want, because you've got that wire, 12-volt line just running every place. So I do that at the same time. Everything is in the same trench. And then it also makes it easier to maintain it down the road. Instead of having lines every place, I've got everything pretty much convoluted into one kind of opening, so I can find it easier. Okay?
Is there any way, I've just moved into a place, I have no idea what I've got.
Yeah.
Is there any way I can find where those lines are running?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. So what they'll have, and we'll just go with a quick lesson. So I brought some of my parts. This is the bottom line. This will be in that book I'm going to send you guys. This will be in there. You'll have a chart, the whole thing. It'll all be right there. This is what we call the main line or half-inch line. Here's the funny thing. None of the lines are half-inch, any of them. They all say they're half-inch lines, but there's like 3 different manufacturers. They're anywhere from 0.58, 0.62 to 0.71 inches. But this is the most common right here. This is the contractor's grade. Now what I'm going to share with you is, if you go up to the wall of Depot and see all their drip parts, it's like even I glaze over going, what the heck? What is this? So many manufacturers, so many options. What we've done with our drip irrigation system is I just simplified. I said, I want my customers, I'm gonna pick the best part. That's it. I'm gonna have the contractor grade, just the best part. And then I want one that is easier to get on the line. Some of you have to be Superman. You gotta be Superman to get these parts together. I picked a part that goes with any size half-inch. This will adjust to any size that you've got, that you can add on a line. And then it's easier to get onto the line. It's easier to push that onto the line. So I went for that. The drip emitters, the plugs, everything. We went with the 1/4-inch couplers. It's easier to get your fingers on because I'm getting a little arthritis anymore. I've been lifting too many trees and I don't have the strength I had before. So I can't deal with that contractor stuff I used to. I used to just go, yeah, man. Not anymore, I can't do that. I'm going, dang it, I can't get that thing on. So I just went with, it's 50 cents more, but it's like way easier to get on. Life is easier. So I curated our irrigation parts to make it easier for my customers. And really, it's about me. For me, it just makes it easier for me because I'm using my parts. And then it's easier for my customers too. Okay, you've got this line going out through the entire structure of the yard, just like spiders out every place. This is what the valve is turning on, sending water through there. You can have up to 500 feet of this on any one valve. I've had a little bit more on some if it's pretty flat. If you're on an in-grade, grades of some sort, it's a little less. But the book says 500 feet of this per valve. Okay, that's a lot. That is a lot of tubing. You can have up to 100 emitter heads. This is called spaghetti tubing or 1/4-inch tubing. It goes by a couple different names. But if you hear people go, oh, the spaghetti tubing comes off because it looks kind of like spaghetti compared to the other. This is what you punch into that line. This gets it close to the plant. This actually takes it directly to the plant. There's no glue, there's no tape, there's only barbed valves. It's super easy to work with. Okay, anyone can do it, literally anyone. So you put on a 1/4-inch valve. This is called a 1/4-inch barb. You'll notice the raised lips there. I picked that one over all others because it's easier to grab and use. It's easier to get into the pipe. It's easier to get into this. So you just poke that in, punch a hole into this. Oh, let's see if I can actually show you what we're doing. I sell this particular hole punch because it goes in your palm and it just doesn't wear your hands out. So it's easier for us that aren't quite as strong to get the hole in the ground in this pipe. And it actually takes a little plug out of this tube. It actually takes a little piece out, so it seals a little better. You just poke a hole. You take your 1/4-inch line. I didn't really come ready for this. Basically, pokes it right in there, and that's it. You can take that out, put a new plant or whatever right there. That's as easy as that. It really is.
Call that little thing.
This is a 1/4-inch barb. Really what it comes down to, it's in my own box. So I've got all these parts. You've got a coupler, brings two pieces together. You have an elbow, and you have a T. That is it. You can have this thing go the way you want. So it has a little bit of flex by itself, but if you got to make a turn, an elbow is the way to go, because otherwise it'll tend to kink on you some. So elbows are good. And this just brings them together.
Is that
Okay?
glueless?
Glueless, it's all, no glue, no tape, no nothing. Just push that, simply take this, you push it in there, and I defy you to take this off. You can't get it off. You'll have to cut your way out. That's it, it just slips right on there and then that's it. No glue, no anything. Now the secret with this cannot run, a drip system cannot run. Now I've got this here. You cannot run drip systems at house pressure. Some of you are at 45 to 60 pounds per square inch. These drip systems are not made to run at that. They're made to run at anywhere from 15 to maybe 30 pounds per square inch. You've got to get that pressure down. So you need a pressure reducing valve. They actually call it that, pressure reducing valve. So for us, did I bring one? Here. And you need a filter. So here, let's say you're traveling, you want to go for a while and your pots are on the patio. I set this up, this manifold, to screw onto your hose bib. It's a battery operated timer. Just a few batteries, makes it run for a season. The water turns it on, comes down here. This is a pressure reducing valve. It lowers it down to 30 pounds per square inch, and it has a filter in it, all combined.
What's
So-
the need for the pressure? What would happen if you didn't have that?
If you don't have the pressure reducing valve, what will happen is some of you, the flow will be much higher, and some of you will actually, the emitter heads will come off. You'll go out, you'll turn the system back on now, and the heads are off, or they're just gone, or something happened. The pressure's too much to keep all the parts. The larger pieces, your half-inch pipe, they'll actually have leakage, it just won't be as efficient. Main thing is you'll blow your heads out. You'll have your emitter heads much.
Now, is that above ground so that you?
This is for above ground. This is for easy, cheesy.
So
not
I
for-
can't find that, I don't have one.
Correct. Most of you have your stuff in the ground. This is one that I put together for folks that just want one valve to go on their deck or run their house plants for a while during the season. I sell quite a few of these actually. Okay, but this is a pressure. The example is, here's a valve, maybe yours is in the ground or whatever, turns it on, reduces the pressure, filters it. If you don't have a filter, it's amazing how gritty your soil is, how much sand. It's actually frightening how much junk you'll pull out of this filter. You'll open up this filter and you'll just go, oh my gosh, there's sand like crazy in this. Where did that come from? You need to screen that out, because if that sand goes down the line and clogs up your drip emitter, it'll actually clog the whole thing up, and you won't know you have a problem until the plant is dead. You need a filter.
Sediment too for.
Sediment, if you're on a well, for sure you need a filter. The city's pre-screened some of their stuff, but anyway, yes.
How much spaghetti did you say you could put?
You can go up to 100 emitter heads.
100?
Emitter heads. So almost unlimited spaghetti tubing. The book says up to 25 feet of spaghetti tubing on one emitter head. Okay, so 500 foot of half-inch line, this big line, okay, half-inch. You can have up to 25 feet. So from here to out there, up to 25 feet of this. After that, you start to reduce, the flow starts to reduce, you don't get your emitter, your pressure coming out. Okay, you have up to 100 emitters on any one. I've actually had more than 100 on mine. I've had
Spaghetti feet?
just spaghetti tubing up to 25 feet per line. Then you can have up to 25 lines. No, up to, what is that? 100 emitter heads, yeah. I've got all these numbers in my head. I can see the chart in my head. It's hard to get it out in words, okay?
I'm sorry, I just didn't get that.
500?
How much spaghetti, so how much potential spaghetti tubing would you have on one stretch of the?
One stretch, 25 feet.
One stretch.
Yeah.
So
And if
for
you're going
all-
over,
all
if you're
those-
going 25 feet, you really need the half-inch line going out there.
Okay,
That's too
so-
much, 25 feet.
But I'm just saying, so for all of the emitters that I have going out, I add those all up and it can only be 25 feet?
No. Okay, here we go. So, the spaghetti tubing, the small lines,
Right.
you can have up to a 25-foot run
For each
before you
emitter.
have, for each plant,
Got it.
okay?
Thanks.
Then you can have literally hundreds of emitter heads. I doubt if you all can actually max out your system on any one valve. You can't, I can't find, I've only had one system over the years, and that was because I did the front yard and the backyard and the side yards all on one valve. And I had so many emitter heads that I actually started to, out by the mailbox, I barely had any flow coming out. You'll know when you have too many emitter heads, because when you turn it on, it won't flow out. Going, oh, I've maxed out my pressure. So that's, okay, I'm just quoting the book real quick for you. Okay. Again, that'll be in the book. I'm going to email you guys. Yes.
Where's the clipboard that,
Oh, it's a clipboard around for the email. Make sure that comes up here too, if you would. Okay. Let's go over, let me take a break here. Let me just share my favorite heads. Emitter heads, what I use. I've got this. Let's see if I can get through my box. Yeah, here we go. Okay. So, green. Actually, they're changing the colors anymore. It's been so consistent for decades. Now the manufacturers are changing. We're out of the recession. There's this buyout mania. And so companies are buying other companies and they're combining. It's just getting really confusing. But for now, green equals 2 gallons per gallon emitter head. Okay, this is pressure compensating. It's a button head. Most of the buttons that look like this, those are self-cleaning pressure compensating. It's ideal. You can also have a flag emitter. Sometimes I have a little flag on top and pull them out and clean them. The benefit of those is you can clean them. What I find is those are super problematic. I've just stopped selling those. They're not even of interest. I don't want to curse my customers with that kind of headache. They blow off the tops, they're just not good. And they're not pressure compensated. But the contractors love them because they're cheap. That's why they use them. They'll buy a bag of 1,000 and just go, here guys, use these. Get me the most for my contract I just bid out for you guys. You want this. 2 gallon per hour emitter head for trees and shrubs, it's best. For my flowers, I use blue or black. Blue or black is kind of 1 gallon per hour emitter head. Okay. Again, pressure compensated, self-cleaning. That's just what I do for maintenance. For my containers, I use this head. This is the greatest head ever. This is an adjustable head, so it goes. You can actually shut it all the way off. When you back it off, you feel it kind of click. For every click, it's a gallon per hour. This is a 1 to 10 gallon per hour emitter head. What I love about it is, I wish I had my pruners. Do I have pruners? Here, I got cutters. What I love about this is I'll have my spaghetti tubing coming out. I can just put that right on here. Spaghetti tubing goes here, and I run it up the back of my pot, and I can have this sink inside the soil, so it keeps it in place. And I have some really big pots. I mean, I have pots. I grow trees in pots. I mean, I have really big pots. There I can have this, and I can adjust it out, and I have that flow. It's kind of like a little spider bubble head kind of thing. It's like a mini bubbler. I can adjust it to the width of my pot. Does that make sense? Am I explaining that right? So I can actually adjust it, and it doesn't move. Because pots, this thing is coming up from the back side of the pot. It gets knocked. This kind of keeps things in place. We also sell the exact same head without this stake, and you can adjust it as well. So the spaghetti tubing goes right into the back of this. I find for my pots, so this is by far better because it keeps it in place. Really upped my game with container gardens when I found this particular head. So I sell as many of these heads as I do the 2 gallon per hour emitter heads. Make sense? That's head. Drip emitters in a nutshell.
So that one is a little smarty head?
It is, it's like a little bubble. It would have to be above the head, have to be above the ground a little bit, and it just spreads out.
Looks like spider legs.
Kind of, yeah, like spider legs. That's a good way to explain it. Yeah, very good. And that's what's in my box. Your spaghetti tubing, they have the exact same fittings. So you've got your coupler, which you've already used, an elbow, you've got a T, exact same parts, just smaller. And they just bring the small spaghetti tubings around, okay? Every system needs, you should always have some of these in your box. This is called a goof plug, because if you put a hole in someplace and you goofed, you can plug it up and it will stop it. So my system is riddled with these. So just if I change a plant out or whatever, I can just now pull that 1 emitter head out and put that in and it's solved. So it really makes it easier than taping, gluing. Some people, I just talked to someone that used duct tape. So it doesn't work. You gotta plug it, yeah. So they come in little cards like this. You need some goof plugs. Just have some, because you're going to make a mistake. Okay. Also for my ground covers, my thyme lawn, strawberry beds, I use this. This is soaker hose. This is your spaghetti tubing size. You run this out. What they've done is they've embedded an emitter head every 12 inches. And so you just take this line, plug it into your main distribution line, run it through your strawberry bed or down your carrot row or whatever. It's a great little way to get more efficient use out of a ground covering kind of plant. So I use some of this. Not a lot of it, but I use some of it. Okay. Okay.
What's that called?
Drip soaker hose. Soaker hose. Sometimes you'll see it made out of the recycled tires, like this stuff. They'll make this spaghetti tubing out of this stuff. I don't care for it as much myself. I've had some trouble with it. So I stopped selling this coiled roll made out of this stuff. it wasn't as consistent down the road. I like it for just a couple dollars more. You can actually be very precise on where that emitter head is, and you get more consistent pattern up and down the row. So I switched over. For my customers, I only sell this, but you'll find this at the big boxes, that kind of stuff. It's the same spaghetti tubing made out of this material. I don't like it as much, just school of hard knocks. Just kind of some things I've learned. This would be great for raised beds. Yep, really good for that. Or rows of veggies or herbs, that kind of stuff. That's where you're using that.
How far do you bury it?
For my, I don't bury it usually. I don't like my stuff buried because it makes it hard to get to. I like it barely underneath the surface, but Ken, it might freeze. I don't care. This stuff doesn't freeze very, very easily. I want it to be easy to access. I don't want it down 18, 24 inches. I want it to be just underneath the surface, up against the fence line. Sometimes I don't even bury it. I want it exposed. So if you're getting a good quality, this is the best quality half-inch pipe I could find. So black is better than brown. You'll see some brown because it's UV stabilized. It's all about how fast will the sun break it down. This is the best quality I've been able to find so far, so I sell this one because it doesn't break down the sun. Well, if it's a good quality, you can just run it down the fence line behind the shrubs or behind the screening plants, and now I don't have to bury it at all. Now, if I want to add a line or go check to see if the pack rats or gophers got to it, I can just look and go, oh no, that's fine. Oh yeah, that's fine. I'll give a visual inspection. So it's just easier to maintain down the road.
Do you have any alarms for leaks?
Alarms for leaks. The easiest way to find leaks, turn the system on, walk the lines. It's the only way. And you will find over the winter, like I had one emitter head, one of my drip emitters, the head actually froze and it popped off, so all I had was this back part, and the top had come off, so it was just flowing. And so I'm going, oh, that's really easy to spot. I just run it, go, oh, there it is. I just cut it off, put a new one on, and I'm done. It took me all of 90 seconds to kind of turn it on, walk. I've got my little parts. I just go, done, finished. So that's I'm trying to make it easy to maintain down the road for myself. And if you can't see the hardware, I think that's okay. So it's not about freezing. What you don't want are your valves to freeze in the ground. If that manifold breaks, that's a very expensive fix. It's going to cost you hundreds, $300-400 to replace that manifold because it's cutting the whole thing out, rebuilding it. The parts don't cost anything. It's the labor to go in and replace all that. It's very, very expensive. The other one, some of you have a backflow preventer. It's a big brass piece that comes up out of the ground and goes over. You'll see in your neighborhood they put this ugly green bag over it. Why they do that? We could just mix these city workers with artists, designers. It drives me crazy. Anyway, they put these bags over, sometimes fake rocks, they'll put over them to insulate them. That's also a very expensive part. The part alone is $300-400. Then you need the plumber to put it on. So it's $500-600 to replace that. You don't want that to freeze. So you do want to insulate it, heat tape, drain it, do something midwinter. So watch that one. Those are the two main things. Myself, I purchase my manures, I purchase my mulch, shredded bark, my bag goods. I purchase those in the fall of the year, and I use them as huge insulated pillows over top of my valves. I really like shredded bark, so I use a lot of shredded bark in my yard. And so I take that, I get a bag, it's also clear plastic, so I throw it down over top of my box. And I've never had a valve freeze, even when we go sub-zero for 2-3 weeks at a shot, which is like every 10-15 years. We might see that. The ground can freeze pretty hard. That's when you'll see chaos. People's valves breaking, water flowing down the roads. That happened 3 or 4 years ago. It was pretty cold and a lot of stuff got broken. If you simply put a bag of whatever you're going to use next spring over top of that valve, that box, it really takes the edge off. Now you got this much extra soil on top of your valve, and you're not out there to really look at it. No one sees that. It's okay. Okay. Some things I've just learned over the years. You will never find that in a book. Yeah, go ahead.
Question, we have lots of existing alligator junipers in our yard. Should
Yes.
we worry about watering those?
Good question. So his natives,
Right.
should he worry about his natives? No, I wouldn't water my natives. Yes and no. Let's go that way. Don't put your natives on your drip system because you'll overwater them unless you put them on a whole separate valve. If you just, maybe that's where you set up valve number 6, your free valve. Maybe that's where you put your natives on. Timber, is it going to fall? Is it not going to fall? I'll keep you in suspense. There, I would say, what I tell folks there is don't water your natives because people overwater them. I've had too many customers over the years overwater the natives. I do suggest watering natives April, May, and June. Only 3 months. Those are our bone dry. We're starting to reach our 90 degrees by June. It's hot. The monsoons have not hit yet. Generally, they're very dry months. So if you can supplemental water, especially the pines, pinyon pines and ponderosas, they'll greatly benefit by watering 1 time a month, once, a deep soak. Really what I tell folks to do there, this is a soaker hose. What they do is you put your hose up to right here, and then it spreads out and makes a circle. Just connect that, get one of these, connect it up and just run it through the yard for your key, most valuable trees. But I would not suggest actually adding them onto your drip system because you'll definitely be prone to overwatering. It's too easy to set the clock to come on too often, okay? All right, good question.
Can I quick ask a question about
Yep.
emitter heads? So we've got a mix
Yes,
that we found.
Of
that's
stuff.
there, right? So there's stuff that shoots out, there's stuff that spiders out,
Yeah.
there's drip.
okay,
I don't know
so
what to do with it all.
she's got an older system with a lot of different kinds of heads. Probably several owners just added on to stuff over the years. Just things have happened. Parts have changed, manufacturers have changed. It's time for a tune-up. You need an irrigation tune-up. And some of you, if it's really chaotic, it may pay you to have a professional come out and tune up your system, just like a car. They can come tune up your irrigation head for you. And what they'll do is they'll just run the system for full cycle. They'll look for where the wet spots are, look to see so they can identify where the heads are. Then they'll go and modify that. Some of you've got big established trees, the trunks on them are like this, but still dealing with the 1 or 2 emitters right at the trunk of the tree. Those emitters aren't doing anything for that tree at all. That tree's actually picking up moisture from the flower bed over there now, from the shrub line over there, from the privacy row over here, they're picking up water from other places. You need to take that, cut it off, take one of those 1/4-inch tees, and take that head and put one out here and one out here on the drip line. So if I'm a tree, I'm the trunk, my branches go out here, this is called the drip line. I would take that emitter that was right here at the trunk, I put it halfway out between the outer drip line and the trunk, I put it out here someplace, close. And I'd probably add another emitter or 2.
But how do I decide what kind of emitter I want?
2-gallon per hour emitter for
But what
trees and
pattern?
shrubs. Pressure compensated button emitter. Come to Waters Garden Center, I'll help you
Just
set
the
them up.
drip, Just the drip.
Just the drip ones.
I don't care about
Nope.
the spiders just in my pots.
Pipe spider just in your pots.
And the shooters, I don't even want shooters.
Nope.
Okay. thank
Nope.
you.
You just need more heads of the drip emitters. You need consistency. As soon as you start mixing different kinds of heads, you can never get the pressure right in the system. As soon as you adjust, especially the adjustable heads, you get this adjustable head, when you adjust this down, the pressure changes throughout the entire system, and all of a sudden that one changed. It's like chasing blobs around. It's like you can never get it right. This is not a good way to go for a tree and shrub system. This is for flowers, small systems, but people use these all the time because they need more emitter heads. They don't want to cut it off, put a T in and put 2 in. They just want 1. They cut it off, put this and open it up, let it flood. It's the Californians do that. They're used to flood irrigation. And so this is a kind of a miniature flood irrigation thing, and they can wrap their brain around that. It's not ideal for micro irrigation though. It's better to have set emitter heads, okay? I want to go over some plants that are awesome, that work really well locally, that are low care, low maintenance, low, and why I like them. Really quick, okay? This one's coming into bloom right now. Mine kind of almost looks close to this right now. This is called autumn sage. Every yard should have 1 at least. Hummingbirds love this plant, and it's herbal, so animals don't eat it. but hummingbirds love it. It gets up about this tall, kind of bubble shaped, kind of ball shaped. Great plant. It is deciduous, it'll lose its leaves, but it just does this from April through November. Who doesn't want that from April through November? I just love it. I have a lot of them. Euphorbia, this is actually related to poinsettias. So it's got a heavy, thick sap to it, kind of milky like a poinsettia. But it's starting to bloom, that's the flower. And it only does that for a couple months. And then it just turns this beautiful evergreen perennial. Does this year round. Great, drought hardy, full sun, tough, only gets about this tall, bubble shaped. Now I'll go to that one next. This one, for you Phoenix folks, you love your bird of paradise. The one that grows in Phoenix does not grow up here. That orange, red one, but the yellow one does. And it does very well. This is the hardier variety. The other ones get killed out in the winter. This one is winter hardy for up here. And just as tough as the Phoenix variety. Drought hardy, full sun, put it in the wind. You folks up on the hillsides, put it right out there. The wind is just killing it. In full sun, surrounded by the driveway. And it will love that. It'll have these beautiful yellow flowers like a bird of paradise all summer. This one I have a lot of. Actually, if you plant one of these, you'll have many. This is a great little wildflower for here. It's called meadow sage. Meadow sage puts these blue flowers on all spring. When it gets done blooming, I'll cut those off, fertilize it again, and it'll do it again a second time in the summer. But when you plant one of these, it's going to reseed and come up all over the place. This is its mature size. This is the mature size. It only gets this tall, and it kind of spreads and it goes out like this. Great little ground cover.
Even in rock soil?
Even in rock soil, you can talk dirty to this, you can just be mean to this, and it will bloom like this consistently. Yeah, does very well. Good little drought hardy native. In animals, I found it's a sage, so animals don't eat herbal things, and so they don't like the fragrance or the sap or the things. So this is one I use as a repellent in my containers. This is society garlic. Actually, if you rub it, you'll maybe smell a garlicky smell. But the foliage is pretty, and the flowers are pretty, and you can't kill it. This is kind of a bulb kind of plant. You can't kill bulbs. So garlics of all types, this is society garlic. It's not edible, it's just pretty. But it's got an odor to it that the pigs don't like, and so I'll put that in, I'll surround it with some other flowers. It kind of has a repelling action to them. Just a pretty perennial for your tough plant. This is another herb. This is called Santalina, or the common name is lavender cotton. It does this, and it'll get up about that tall, kind of mound, kind of flows. It gets a yellow flower on top of it. It's evergreen. This is winter color. I put this up and down my steps. I've got a 2-story house. So you come into the driveway, you got to walk down the side of the house to get to the backyard, which is pretty steep. So I've got steps and lighting there, but I put this on the edge of the steps every few steps because it's bright and the moonlight picks it up. So at night you can actually define where things are, and yet the animals and the deer pack rats don't bother it. Great plant, low water user.
What was that called?
Santalina. Okay, and you're welcome to come up and take a look at these afterwards. Every yard should have one of these. Gaillardia, yeah. Or blanket flower. So this is one that reseeds if you're a bird gardener. I love birds. This is a great seed source for the birds in midwinter. And great perennial. You can just count on this to do this all the time, all summer. It's going to do this from spring through fall. This plant one at the top of the hill.
What was that called?
Gaillardia or blanket flower, either one. There's several colors down there. This will reseed and flow down the hill. You'll just see it come up in places that go, oh, how nice. There's another one. Where'd that come from? It just is a great wildflower for here. Yeah.
Animals?
Animals don't eat it. If you look at the foliage, it's got hairs in the back of it. Anything that's got a hair or a texture to the foliage, animals don't like. Okay? Kind of outside the box, I love heuchera or coral bells because look how bright they are. I use these as underplantings at my trees. I don't think God intended rock to be going right from your yard, just right up to the trunk of the trunk of your trees, it looks unnatural. So I try to do underplantings underneath my trees. And so this is a great one. It's very tough and it's evergreen. This is what it looks like even midwinter. I've cleaned it up a little bit, but it kind of has this look. It does get a little flower that kind of hovers, that's the coral bell part. But I put this where my drip emitter is to my tree. I'll plant one of these right there, and it's tough enough to take that same amount of water and give me that underplanting. So I can have two plants with one emitter, and it just looks good together. And even as the tree gets larger and more shaded, these still pop. And that's how I use that. Another one comes up. This is a U. Let me tell you how I use this. My backyard is hardcore natives. I mean, it is low waters. It looks Mediterranean. It is lush. It's got hot tubs and grills and ponds, waterfalls flowing, but it looks like it's a desert. It's colorful. It doesn't look desert. It's pretty over the top. You'd be impressed. But I have this shaded area, north side, this stark wall, this huge 2-story, no windows, no nothing, just from the ground floor up above the garage, 2-story stucco ugliness. I mean, it's just like stark. Well, what am I going to do? How am I going to get past this? I want to keep it native. I don't want lush stuff, fast-growing aspens that doesn't fit. It would lift the footers. So I used yew right there. This is a shade plant, loves the north. It's evergreen. This is what it looks like. Gets little red berries on it. It's beautiful. Animals don't eat this, but because it's evergreen with a real thick foliage to it, and I've got it on the north side, I can now treat this shade plant like I do my other native plants. Even though it's a high water user technically, but because it's in the shade, it's kind of the way it's made. I treat it just like my natives. Does great, does fabulous because it's in the shade. So it's no longer a high water user in the shade. This has now grown from that up to well above my head. It's up about the 1-story level now, and it will keep going. And it's just this nice, soft, double-pillared green. It's beautiful. You can't see the wall anymore. It's so pretty, I framed a piece of art down below. I've turned it and I've uplit it. And I'm now taking my lemons and making lemonade out of this big wall. I did it by adding a non-native thing into my native kind of landscape. And then I think I'm getting down to it. A couple here. This is truly a native. This is silverberry. It grows wild in the area. This particular one, we variegated it, so the variegated one is not native, but it's related to it's a cousin to the actual native, which is more blue. But this is a great evergreen. We should plant more of these and less of red tip Bottinia. Red tip Bottinia is a high water user, high maintenance. It's just not as good. It's aggressive. You got to maintain it all the time. This one grows naturally up to about head high. Once it gets up there, you never have to water it again. No care. This is its winter color. It has a little fragrant flower. Great evergreen for screening. This is St. John's wort. I wish they would come up with a better name for this than wort, like sexy yellow bloomer or something. But St. John's wort, we're trying to introduce more of these because they're so tough in the sun. Low water users with a long, long bloom cycle. So it has this little yellow flower to it, puts a little fruit on. Very interesting. Lots of things. Great fall color. It's got a great little plant. Only gets up knee high, and then that's it.
Deciduous?
Every plant. That one is deciduous. Yes. Every plant needs one of these. This is red yucca. Has that red flower that kind of floats up. Sorry for the folks in the back. Has that red flower that floats up. It's just starting to go. This one happens to be called brake light yucca. In that, it's a little bit smaller than the regular yucca, and the flower is a true red. It's not salmon or pink or something like that. I mean, it's like brake light red. So very, very unusual. Great for containers, courtyards, that kind of stuff. This is rabbit bush. There's a place for it. It's kind of a weed. I would not grow it in my own yard because it just gets so big, so aggressive. It reseeds every place. It's kind of like Russian sage. Yes, it's pretty at first, but it ages quickly, gets kind of ratty looking, and then it starts popping up every place. It's more maintenance than I wanted, but it's one of the most popular natives, so I got to show it off. So it gets up about head high or so, kind of like this. Okay? And that is the class. You can clap, and I'll take 2 extra questions.
What about Artemisia?
All the sages, anytime you hear sage, she's a gardener, gotta love a gardener. She's spouting Latin names at me for sage. Anytime you hear the word sage, it's golden for her. Yeah, we've got that one down below.
Starting your drip system when it still goes cold?
I think-
Do you do it as early as you suggest?
Okay.
or-
So I'm trying to make it easy for you all without muddying the waters. Thank you for muddying the waters. So April, you should start setting your clock. You should turn it on, okay? We've had it off for the winter. You should turn it on. That's it. Here's what I am doing myself personally. Midwinter, I keep my system on year-round. What I do is I change the start dates. My midwinter start date is in the middle of the day because it's rarely freezing here. We rarely freeze at 11, 12, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I still actually have my clock set for that time frame. I've adjusted to these frequencies. I'm now because things are waking up, they need some moisture. So I've actually adjusted the time. I'm watering the same amount. And the frequencies now, instead of every 2 weeks, is now once a week. But I'm still middle of the day. As soon as I see 80-degree weather, that's just me, I'll flip it down to dawn. I'll actually go to these time frames. It'll be coming out very early morning, and the goal is to water before heat of the day. That's probably another couple weeks out or so before we reach 80s. It looks like the next couple weeks is 70 degrees. Beautiful, actually. 70-degree weather. It's just gorgeous. So
81.
when is it? 80.
Wednesday.
Oh, really? So maybe it'll be another. I might change that. By May 1, you should have it by dawn. You should be watering before the heat of the day because it's hot. It's starting to get hot and windy. Prevailing southwest wind hits by May 1. Okay. Once you figure out how long to water things, you never have to change that. Stay up there. What is that? Once you get this, you never play with this ever again. If it takes 2 hours to get that water pushed all the way through the root zone, you never play with this. You don't go, well, it's winter, I'll only water for an hour. No. It takes the same amount every time to water that plant completely. What you're only playing with is, how often should I have it come on? If you can change your mindset from, how many emitters do I have, or how often, how much water do I need, if you can just play with this one variable, life is so easy. So right now I need to go to every 7 days. Oh, it's really hot. I mean, it's going to be 99 degrees, prevailing southwest wind. It's June 15. We've got a party coming up. I want things to look really good. Father's Day's coming. Maybe I'll manually cycle that on one extra time, or maybe for the month of June, I'll bump it to every 5 days. But I never have to change this. I only change, I'm just going to have the skip day go to every 6 days. Let's see how it'll do. If you're just playing with this, these clocks are super easy. As soon as you start trying to figure out every single variable, you'll never get past that. It's your brain starts to smoke, and you start to drool, you glaze over. It's bad. So if you're just playing with that, it's so easy. Okay. I'll hang out with questions afterwards, so I'm not going anywhere. If I didn't get to yours, come up and we can go over specifics or whatever, or the plant. Feel free to look at the plants. Feel free to take a picture of this. We'll try to maybe get this, Ken, to the email with the book. We can email this out to folks. Okay, make sure you got your email on it. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you bet.